For the very first time, you'll step inside a truly spectacular Parisian mansion, one completely closed to the public. This is the private home of world-renowned interior designer Juan Pablo Molyneux. After opening the doors of Chateau de Puy-sur-Vanne, he now gives you exclusive access to his residence in the French capital, a historic mansion he has fully restored. Juan Pablo takes you through every room, even the most private spaces, explains his bold, decorative choices, and shares his unique vision.
Welcome to the Hotel Claude Passard in the Marais in Paris, the center of Paris, probably one of the oldest neighborhood in Paris. And we are here in a historic building built in 1619, 420-something years ago. And it is Hotel Claude Passard, who was at that time the secretary of Louis XIII, father of Louis XIV. So we have here a fantastic place that now is all been restored. I'll tell you more about that restoration, but we are here in the center, Cour d'Honneur, or the inner court of this building. You came through the door through a very sober facade, very kind of clean facade, and that shows you what privacy meant even at those times. We are, as I said, in the heart of Paris, so it was public streets, etc., but you had this kind of rather magnificent door that when you come in, you discover things. It is that kind of a little jewel made of stone. We are in the early 17th century. The transition between Italian architecture and French architecture, discovering what is classicism, neoclassicism, classicism at the time. And in here, we have, as I said, the cour. You came in, of course, with the carrosse, with a beautiful horse riding coach. And right there, we had originally the écuries. Today, they have been transformed in my offices there. We'll see that also. And on the rest of this U-shaped building, it is basically my residence. With my wife, we lived before in New York. And from all the world, we have been bringing all the things that we love. And I want to show this because it is private, it's not open to the public. And on my quest of showing things that we love, and we think that they should be also seen and appreciated by public, that it is not a learning trip here, but it is just to show how can we transform a 400-year-old mansion into a living quarters with all the amenities that we can have on heating, air conditioning, Wi-Fi, etc. So please, I welcome you again, and let's go inside to start this little journey. This vestibule, the proportions date from when the building was built. What is inside is totally new. And the reason why, because this building was destroyed basically right after the revolution. And there was nothing much left of interest, except also one incredible plafond or ceiling, wood ceiling that is called the plafond à la française, that saved this building of entire demolition. Now, when we come in, the arch that you saw when I was coming in was existent, and the windows also in the same location, because at that time, we talk about 17th century early, there was no doors to come in. The door was that red door that we came in through the courtyard. You were already inside the heart of this house. So you came in here, and right there on this wall here, you went through the I would say through the wall, but through the opening basically, and you had the magnificent staircase going to the piano nobile that it was on the first floor actually. Now, when I inherited this space, well, I didn't actually. It's not inheritance. We had to purchase all this, but what I inherited at that time was a boutique that had a mezzanine all around, and it was also partitioned, but right in that half of it. So it was a small space with a huge opening to the street, because our street is right there. And no one had noticed before, and that happened when I got the space and I started demolishing the partitions, is that the building was in a stage that was rather dangerous, because the opening that they have done, they were larger than what they should have been done. So it was already, you could see that the beams were bending, and it was at one point we had to restore that. So just something, that for some people it is a no, is I had to buy these from 11 different owners. Especially in certain countries, it's quite difficult to convince people to leave or to, but I was very lucky. I was able to do that in a very short period of time. And that way I was able to put this building back of not what it was. I was not doing a reproduction of a 17th century the way they lived, but at least the architecture, we respected all that, and we were able to do the finishes that we wanted to do, because there was nothing inside to respect. The walls were just stone and brick. They have done modifications to the building, and it was just sheetrock, on the ceilings. Very badly done and very bad shape, everything. So that allowed me to do a little fantasy here, that if you see this blue and white tile room, that is depicting two royal residences and a royal garden. This is the Chateau de Saint-Cloud, with the entrance of the brother of the king, who was at that time the owner, King Louis XIV. This is the Chateau de Marly, the favorite place of Louis XIV, even more dear than Versailles for him. Here he spent the weekends, although that word, as we all know, didn't exist at the time. But we suppose that 2 days a week were designated to come here to Versailles, to Marly, And also, if you see there on the left, there's a building with a small dome. Those buildings were 7 on each side, and they were housing their ministers, because Louis XIV, like many of us, think that work is life, and it is very difficult to separate one thing or the other. Especially in his case, of course not in mine, but in his case with the responsibility of the royaume, of the kingdom and the empire and Europe and all that. There was no difference between, a daily day life or a working life. So I was able to reproduce these. The originals are engravings, and they're not bigger than this. They are the Louvre. So I had incredible artists that reproduced engravings in paint, in this coloring, and we have 9,000 tiles in this room. You can see that we have a chair rail at a certain height all around the room, but the buildings are not in the line of horizon. the same, because and I separate them with this kind of verdure or greenery on the corners. I was trying to avoid this kind of scenic wallpaper effect that you see a big landscape with buildings and things, whatever. And that's why it is just Saint-Cloud, just Marly, and there we have the gardens. The garden, I chose the garden because I had these Chinese zodiac figures from all over the world. I recollected them in order to get the 12 zodiac figures, and I thought it was more appropriate to have them flying on a garden than above a building. And on top of that, Liancourt had one of the first chinoiserie things in the part of the garden. So we have here, again, it is a little bit, you will see all over this house, this mélange, this mixture of things that they are different, from different periods and different, but I mean, the talking between them, it is the same thing as in my chateau. We're having a good cocktail party with all them. And this is William Kent. The benches, the fabric, it is quite extraordinary because it's totally surrealist. I mean, it could be a mata, could be something like that, and it's an 18th century fabric. At that time, something went wrong designing that, I suppose, because they call it bizarre. That's the name of this fabric. And we were able to reproduce that again. And I think it is quite beautiful, the combination with the Kent benches and all that. This table is fake porphyr, this is wood. And we have done these extensions because I can lower the table, taking the bases of the griffins. And if you put the two benches here, we can have a fantastic dining room. And if you can imagine this room with candle lights, and we can put candles a little bit all over, it's quite magic with all these views of these palaces. And what you have in the center here, it is this is the Pantheon of Rome, and I believe that it is the most beautiful building ever in the world. And I always wanted to do this. This I had done, this particular is in crystal. It weighs, it is not easy to just remove the dome and put it, so you can use this as a kind of a fruit platter or flowers, etc. But Pilar, my wife, she does beautiful, sometimes branches and things that we put here on this. What you're looking at is this dome is what it is inside the real Pantheon. And this facade here, it is what it is really inside. So what I did is I inverted the interior, I put it outside. So we can see everything at the same time. The shape of the Pantheon and the interiors, looking at them from outside. If you go to Rome, you're going to see that this looks like cement. I mean, you go in and wow, fantastic. But here, the wow is immediate. So, and there we have two Egyptians figures of Panthinos, and they were, what it is on the base, it represents also all the different stations of the year, but more elaborate than just the 4 seasons. And those were in what is called the Egyptian Hall at Pavlovsk Palace in St. Petersburg, near St. Petersburg. Those were sold by the Bolsheviks, and they were bought by Prince Galitzin, and he took them all, there were 12, to the south of France, and when he passed away, that were éparpillés, they were all over, inherited and sold, etc. And I got these two in London. and have been with them forever, not forever, but I mean for a long time, to a point that once in the 90s, early 90s, I decided to donate these to Pavlovsk. So we went, Pilar was with me, we went to see the curator of Pavlovsk, who was a little bit too Soviet for that time. And she said to me, we don't need your Egyptians. With what Conrad did, copying them in black plaster, is perfect for what should be here. So at the same time, I had ordered to copy one, to do it in again, because I thought that they were going to be so happy to receive this. You will see that, the copy, in my office. So now I have three. So, anyway, I think that again, this is a typical thing that why an Egyptian with Marly, or with the Saint Cloud, or with the Pantheon, or with myself. But that it is what I want to express, that when things have a quality and when things have a saying, sometimes they work fantastically. This is a Russian basilica chandelier, and that's all what it is in this hall, but I think it is so strong, you don't need anything else. I will open the door now, and we're going to go to my office. So opening the doors, that they're not even centered. And the trouble that I had is that the walls here are inside they're about 80 centimeters thick. And to just move this, because of course we want always the chandelier in the center and the chandelier in the center. At this specific time, I said, it's my home, and I'll be trying to see this with a different eye, because if not, I have to demolish the entire thing. So please, this way we're coming, all this is a little bit off-centered, but it's centered with the windows. So we have to compromise a little bit. You can imagine that all these floors I did them. And the reason why I did this semicircle here was exactly not to have a center with the floor on the other room when we open the doors. I have part of my library here, and I did a mezzanine. You can see now the height of this. We have about 6 meters. So it's perfectly fine to have this in 2 floors, and I keep books there, etc. But it gives a fantastic feeling. This, in order, if I have to receive either clients or friends, or when we have a lot of people, the entrance is here, and some people like to sit and stay here for a while. I think it has that I wouldn't say cozy, but it has a little warmth to it. Although you can see the walls in Scagliola, the blue. It is one of the things that in all the very large jobs that I have done, it is something that it is for me almost an element that is rather necessary in order to create that grandeur, that kind of majesty on the inside of buildings. When you do columns, you do architraves, or it's not decoration, basically, it's part of the architecture. Scagliola, it is done with the dust of marble, and it's a technique, Italian technique from the 15th century, basically. At that time, the veining of the marble was done with feathers or with silk threads that they disintegrated when they were, doing it, I suppose. Today, of course, that's done with all chemicals or something, but it really looks like marble. It's nicer than marble because you can invent colors and you can do walls without seams. I mean, you can here between there and there must be about almost 5 meters 80, not one seam. Of course, you can't get a piece of marble that size anywhere. And what it is important, what I just said about inventing a color, because in the next room you're going to see that the walls are lavender with touches of gray and burgundy. Is different to find in nature something like that, although you might find something much nicer, of course. But my point is that we can go ahead with the coloring, working with that coloring. Here again, Louis XV, Empire, that console I designed, and it is very much inspired in an architect of the 18th century, Claude Nicolas Ledoux. And Ledoux did typical columns designed by him, that they were cylinder squares. And one of the major things that he has done at that time was the Saline Royale de Arc-en-Senans, that is a salt factory for Louis XV. And in that compound, there is a house called the House of the Director, and it is a masterpiece. And that I'm working on it to do it in crystal, like the Pantheon. So I can have also the Ledoux House of the Director. Again, you can remove the roof if you have good muscles, because they're very heavy, those things, and do something inside that building. Those are the things that I'm keen on, experimenting with materials and seeing things that you don't know if you're in your dreams or or in certain books that you find elements, and why not? And so this part was the last part that I was able to purchase of this compound. And this was the most difficult negotiations I had. But finally, I got this, and that completes the building on this floor. The one thing that I told you that here was the main staircase, well, as you can see, it's gone. There was no staircase. I mean, they ripped it off when after Revolution. So I had to find a place for doing and constructing a staircase. Difficult because of the size and the width of this house. The staircase could not be centered to the building, because the central part of the building was the main living space. So it had to be in the corner, so evidently should have been here. Although I was losing this space and the space above, I did it here. So if we go to the salon, to the living room, you'll see a narrow space, and you can see also the height of the building. So I had to do a lot of steps here to get up there. And as it is narrow, I had to trick making it very large, the first steps, narrow in the center, and large when you arrive in the landing upstairs, in order to make you feel that you're important. But because if not, it was ending up to be a kind of a service staircase. In the living room, again, I'll continue to explain you the scagliola, because we're just talking about that. Here, all the walls are scagliola, and this is the lavender color. And we have the casings of the doors in that kind of gray lavender with touches of Bordeaux, of dark red. Again, it is a very square room that I love the proportions of this. Beautiful high ceilings. And you can see we are in a 17th century, early 17th century building. Look at the light that we have here. The sun comes in because we have a garden on one side, we have the cour d'honneur on the other side, and basically we have sun all day. And all the rooms with the windows, they get all the way to the ceiling. So they're huge windows. So that it is in a place where we're just coming out of the basically, well, not just coming out, but I mean, we're not that far from the Middle Ages when this was built, and you have something full of light, full of big openings, and even though as I said, it's 1620, so things were quite different there, the way people lived. On the things to notice here, it is we have a very nice, important mirror that is all wood carved and gilded. It's Venetian. It's 18th century. The sconces also, they're quite special. They're Swedish, and they are the drunken god. That was Silenius. I think that it was the assistant of Bacchus. I think he was trying all the wines before he gave them to him. And it is a very kind of funny face of Silenius on the sconces there. And on this side here, we have a I love that. It's a photograph of Doug Hall, who has some of his work in the Metropolitan in New York. And this is a series of Italian opera theaters in the south of Italy. This is a theater in Fano. It gives to the room something also very much alive. And we have one, you can see this pair of chairs. The difference is so slight. I mean, it's almost the same, but there are little teeny differences. And one is signed, has all the stamps and things from Versailles, and the other one from Saint Cloud, the palace that we saw at the vestibule. That reason I put them with different fabrics in order to remind me that they're different. And here, these tables, I designed these, and they are very much inspired in the furniture from Tula. Tula is a city south of Moscow, about 200 kilometers south of Moscow, that was famous in the 15th century, 16th century for guns, for rifles and things that they did all that filigrane of gold and steel. And at one point they were so refined, every royal house in Europe had things from Tula, meaning the armors or the guns of even the cannons, etc. And Catherine the Great asked for furniture designed in Tula with the same kind of, they didn't work with the wood there. Everything was steel and bronze and gold. So she had given to the Palace Pavlos, you see that. There's a beautiful table and chairs and the coiffeurs and a few other things from Tula. And I always loved that combination. You can see that it's everything mixed here. The design of almost jewelry, the design of a gun, the design of a classical but with a rather contemporary shape, capital. We had a little lion there, and then we have this decor with the flowers, etc. I put here a coral. It's called the tiger coral. That is rather rare, top. But this, I call it, in my production, it is a Tula table. This, I'm always marveled about this. If you see the lines of these, that they're just extraordinary, and they are all symmetrical. I have four. I have two here and two, I think, in the country. These are balusters. It is a rumor, to put it that way, that they were the balusters of the stair demolished in Versailles. They was called the ambassador stair, that Louis XV demolished to do apartments for his daughters. But what I'm fascinated, it is that the precision of the cutting of this marble with this kind of bleak shape, etc., it is identical to, I don't know how many, maybe 80 balusters or probably more. Times that there were no, today it's easy, laser, computer, electricity, machines, etc. It's hand, all made by hand, designed, pencil, paper, and then not easy to give the paper with this design and say, do it. And they're all the same. I think sometimes in small details like that, you spend sometimes some more time thinking about them and liking them more because of that. That chest of drawers is all marble, and it is so sober. It is just pieces of marble put together, and you create a piece of furniture as a commode. This is northern Italy, also is 18th century. I saw it, I remember that I was going in a rush to the airport. I was in Rome, and I passed by the antique dealer, and I saw it on the window, and I told the taxi, stop, stop, stop. I went in, I lost my flight, and I got the commode. Because it was it was one of those things that it is like a I don't know how to say that, but it's instant. It's photographic image. The fabric on the curtains is I think it's a beautiful design, and this was fabricated, designed, and then fabricated for Louis XV. In a different coloring. And I found, I didn't, Prel, the manufacturer, they have archives of so many fabrics because they work for all the big museums and palaces, etc. And one day there, I was looking at some of the archives, and we find this, and this was the first time that it was reproduced with a different coloring, because if I put, you see, this is the dark red or Bordeaux and the silvery gray, with that, it's a little bit what we have in the room, even with this chest. I mean, everything starts helping this conversation that I'm all the time saying that one has to have in a room, so nothing it is out of place. Again, it is a little mixture of so many things. The console table also, it is, Versailles has the same. This is like nicer, although it's the same as the one in Versailles. But I think that the coloring of the marble is much more alive, what they have there. So this is our way of life. This is a house, again, for 420 years old. And you entertain here, you have cocktails, you have, and it is so nice. And in this kind of weather, we open the windows, we have the doors, you have the garden. And it does really, it's something that I'm very happy with this. Hardly to change things. But we're always changing. But if you ask me today, what would you change? I mean, I would change something if I find something that it is much better, either in quality or in design. But I mean, as it is now, is very us. On this marble that I was saying that I love so much, the color, it's coming from China. So you can imagine, that was a hint of where this is coming from. And I have this Fontana, Lucio Fontana ball here with these phenomenal spirits. And I think it is so fantastic to have something that is trying to be ugly in order to create panic on the bad people, so they leave you alone. But I mean, I think instead of creating panic, they're so charming, and it is their fantasy. They're just amazing, and they have more than 10 centuries old, and it's terracotta, and they have only, you can see here and in the other one, this crack there is all. So it is, to have something so fragile 10 centuries and they're still here. I mean, it is something that, I don't know, I respect that at all. What I want also, I mean, when you see things that they're finished, you can see them that they have been living for some time. And I'm all the time saying that for one can be here alone or with Ines, the dog that she follows me all over, or 30 people or something like that. It is so natural. But when you see the photographs, or when we start restoration of this, I mean, it is there the magic part, that how it works on your brain to see a rotten beam and a fantastic finished ceiling. And the same thing with the walls, that they were rather crooked, because, I mean, building at that age, they start like us, getting not so straight. And you see, when you see it finished, it's difficult to understand the work. And it is also, in my expertise, if I can say that, but I don't want to be presumptuous, but you have to control that passage and you get the good results if you work with a system, with an organization, and with the view in your mind of this as a photograph, even when you have still, rotten beams. Just before walking up the stairs, I want to show you something that is I love so much. The idea is not because it's large or small or whatever, but the idea of having a little garden in Paris. And I was able to get some trees now grown up, and you will see. Let's go there. I'll show it to you. This is the facade that I was telling you about, that is so different to the basically main facade of the house. That is the one when you come into the courtyard. And this one is so simple. It is very Italian. It defines very strictly, in a certain way, all the architraves and the window casings and all that. And there's sort of no ornaments. There are no pilasters. There are no, is just a stucco with that very beautiful Italian, northern Italian pale rose that is with the stone. It looks really beautiful. And the garden, that originally was a large garden going all the way up to the street, has been cut off. And as you can see, is at least gives me the privacy of having this garden, that we have a lot of sun when we need it. And also with these trees, we have the shade that we need in case that we have to put some tables here, etc. But it's, as I said, it's a privilege to be able to have a garden in the heart of Paris. So now we can go upstairs, as I promised, if you follow me. On that staircase that I told you about, the wider, the narrow, we'll use it now to go upstairs, because upstairs is the main floor of this building. And just to give you an idea, I used to have a very small, a smaller staircase with this railing that it was quite beautiful. The 18th century this was originally gilded, but I preferred to just do it in gray, in anthracite. And in order to extend it, I had to open it up, and I added these spindles that they are just straight with this. So that way I was able to reuse the baluster that I had. So if we go up, if you follow me, I had to do this small landing here, that we have this micro mosaic that sometimes is doing something there. And we keep on going with the painted ceiling that we did here. We are now in the most important room of this building. Is another living room. What it is particularly important is the ceiling, because the ceiling is dated 1620 and with the original paint, and it was covered with hay and plaster, and because it was not protected but hidden basically, it wasn't demolished. And because it wasn't demolished, is with André Malraux, the Minister of Culture at the time, knew about this plafond, the ceiling. So that's the reason why this house was classified, protected, and avoided to be demolished, because all at the Marais at that time, this neighborhood, all these huge, big hôtels particuliers or mansions, they were on the list to be demolished in order to sell the stone, sell the wood, sell this, whatever, because it was out of fashion in a certain way, or it was too expensive to restore and put them back to function, with bathrooms and pipes and electricity, etc. So I give thanks to the ceiling. That's why we're here today. In this room, the walls were nothing, so I decided to put suede on the walls. So it is just more, the effect is like if it was an incredible nice painting. And again, we have some furniture that it is remarkable, like the 6 armchairs, those, because it has the original tapestry. And those are dated 1725. Now, evidently they were never used. So probably they fabricate this and they send them to storage or somewhere until I saw them at an antique dealer, and they were I think they're quite extraordinary. Here we have a story with the fabric of this sofa also, because it is the coloring is not exact, but the design is almost Gothic in a certain way. And again, it is incredible to see that one can, for a small little piece of fabric that remains on the back of a curtain or something, they can reproduce, they can work on the design and come out with the entire production of fabric that existed 500 years ago. The things that I do love is that corner table, because it has a beautiful lacquer. Is also late 17th century Japanese. And most important for me is this desk, because this desk, if you see it quickly, you don't know what is it. I mean, if it is from the 20s, from the 40s, well, it happens to be from the early 18th century. And at the same time, studying it more and more, it gets quite close to say that this was designed by Charles Boulle. Charles Boulle, it is this kind of work, all bronzes and things, whatever, and the Boulle marquetry is that type that it is very intricate. And you see this, it doesn't have any bronzes. So it is, according to some historians, is an example of the transition between the Louis XIII furniture called the Mazarin, like the cardinal, to Louis XIV that started really with the Boulle furniture. That was an interpretation of Mazarin, but more rich, basically. And this is either a prototype or something. The only bronze things are the little feet, the sabots, and has nothing else. And even the marquetry is very soft, it's very nice. This was presented at the Biennale des Antiquaires in 2004 as one of the most important pieces. And I'm very proud that that is here with a Giacometti lamp. And again, with the Louis XV armchair. And I don't want to repeat more and more, but I mean, you can see, you can recognize that we have so many different, not styles, but I mean, different transitions between one style and the other, and objects that they can be Italian, like the horses, for instance. One of the horses there, and I will not tell you which one, it is 15th century. The others, they're like from the family. I don't want to be known as a museum or an historical reproduction, that because I mean we don't live that way. And I'm always say, I think that the person who built this house and put the decor in the house, if he was living today, probably he would have done the same things that I'm doing. I mean, why should I try to do something that it was done for a specific family? Normally, in a place like this, there was not that much furniture, and they had the bed in a room like this, although it was a living room. And the bed had curtains and all that. And you see engravings of rooms very similar to this. You can see the same windows and the same ceilings and all that, with the four-poster bed with curtains around. And in the fireplace, sometimes they're heating the soup or something, and they put a table and they were having dinner. You know, it was a different way of life. I mean, I would not like someone to come and cook in my fireplace today. So it is, we have to do it differently. I'm sorry about that. But one other exceptional thing, it is that chest of drawers there. Why I like it? It is rather simple. You see, it is straight. We have no sculpture, no nothing, but is lacquered, Chinese lacquer in it. And it's also probably one of the first pieces of Louis XIV furniture that was sent to China to be lacquered. But in this case, and that's very logical, they were someone working on the logistics, because they disassembled this to send it. And because it was disassembled, the Chinese didn't know that that was a drawer. So you can see that the flower vase, instead of being vertical, is horizontal. So, of course, they didn't explain, no, this goes like this instead of going like that. And everything is upside down. And not that I'm looking for strange things in all the furniture, but I think that it is so human that it is something that I can imagine the face of the fellow who sent it to get it done when he saw it, because probably this was for a very important family or something. What would he explain? I don't know. But that's not my problem today. I love it, and it will stay here. You notice that I have no paintings here. I just have tapestries. We had this tapestry for a long, long time. In 2 other countries, we lived with it. So it was a perfect place to put it. Passing by to go to the next room, I'm telling you about, I love that, it's fantastic, I love this, fantastic. Look, the flowers, they're coming from Puy-sur-Vanne, from our country house. And I think they're just amazing. I mean, it's something to really rejoice about. This piece also is quite interesting. It is tortoiseshell and a pewter, and it's a cabinet for jewelry or something like that. And what it is interesting, it is that on the figures that it is evidently a war, suddenly you have camels. And that is kind of rather strange in a European war. So unless someone got the map wrong, or this is again another fantasy. But it is, I think it is the way it's done architectural, it is kind of simple and nice. And we're going, you notice the windows on this floor, they have that design that is a typical 17th and even 15th century glass design for windows. And you have also, this reminds you a little bit that this is pewter and it's all welded there, like the windows in cathedrals. But those, of course, are transparent. And I had this room, and I wanted always to have a lacquer room, and a Chinese lacquer on the walls. So we came to this, and if you see the doors here, I painted, in the lacquer, the same design that we have in the windows, in order to marriage this, because it was a transition rather brusque from one room to another. For coming with all these and to come into a Chinese world here. And something to notice is that the things that I love and respect of living in France is that the history has also, it is so goes together with manufacturing and creating. It's not only battles, it's not only that. There's a place that was in the 1700s was already working, Bricard in this case, and they had a commission from the Emperor of China for, maybe he was restoring something at the Forbidden City, and his ambassador went to see, and they designed this with a dragon here in the lever. And so when I saw that, never been done before. It was done for them, period, but they had the molds. And when I saw that, I changed a little bit the proportion of where we have this in order to be able to use it, because it's a perfect hardware for a Chinese room. It's the Forbidden City and us. And here we come in to, again, it is a fantastic, bright with light. It's all hand done, hand painted Chinese lacquer done by a French company with a very French blonde lady who's the one who paints. So far from being Chinese, but it is quite exceptional because it is the way that they had interpreted the Chinese design. It is quite so true, so realistic. And when I was building this, you can see here that this is divided with these kind of pilasters there, and you see there, and then there. Normally, should one be all the way down here, as this one. But I found this table. So I ran where she was, saying, can we cut the thing there? Because I would love to have this console right there. And the console is a Ming. It's from, I would say, 1800s or so. So we were able, and so she did one single panel to put there. And the thing is, it is already bent with this doesn't help because it's quite heavy. This is terracotta from the 7th century. And what I love are these bronzes. The color of the patine of the bronze is phenomenal. And this is these sculptures are telling you about the philosophy. These are Japanese. And what they're trying to say is that you need to have a couple. A human being is not a one, but is a two together. And if you can see here, this poor man has very long arms. and the rest is rather proportioned, even the belly. And then this one, it has everything is proportioned except the legs. So if the two were one, they would be perfect. So you need someone in your life to make you perfect. So I thought it is. You see things with meaning. Either they're funny, either they're peculiar or something. I think that they give you so much. They tell something, and it's amusing, and I always think that if you are seated on a dinner and you have nothing to talk, I try to look for something around. It doesn't happen here because I'm always have nice people. But when you go someplace, you have to find something to break the ice. In this case, they're really icebreakers. And we are now in the formal dining room. The particularity of these finishes is that these walls that they are in this paneling, these are real feathers. And they are guinea hens and pheasant. Pheasants are little plumes that we put in the big panels. And then all these, in this transition here, is also pheasants. And it does create again, trying to find extraordinary things, extraordinary materials with a different hues. I started doing lampshades in feather. And with the people that work for me for doing that, one day I just asked them if they have ever done a paneling in feather. And they were all so excited doing it. I mean, they wanted to do it. So we started moving forward with this. And even though it is evidently costly because it is a handwork and each feather is the size. So you have to, somehow they bring this in panels already set up. But when they install that, I don't know where can I show you this, perhaps here, it's very difficult to see a line. I think it is around there. Yeah, there I see the line. This is the size, the square of one panel ready, done. And then when they put this with this, the person comes and start putting new feathers on top in order to hide the line, so that creates like a big panel. A work like this will take about 5 months to prepare this, and just to finish the room with all as you see it is about another month. So it's not something that it is as one can believe that if you see feather by feather, but it can be possible in a restoration because, just doing the mill work, or if you have to do flooring or the plaster, etc., that would take a little bit even more than that. In here, we go again with the same kind of combination of things. These chairs are Italian Empire, painted white and gold. The table is a typical French dining. Jacob is an ebanist who did a lot of this type of furniture. They were quite common, nothing special with it. That's a 17th century Venetian mirror. And this lantern, it has a story because I was looking for 6 lanterns to a very large gallery on a place I did in Canada some years ago. And it was almost the architecture of a Russian palace. And for the gallery, for the main gallery, I needed all these lanterns. Of course, you don't find that at an antique dealer. You don't have 6 huge lanterns. So I was looking everywhere to see what can I use there that is not the typical French lantern or something like that. And on their archives of old company called Delille. In here, next, we can go walking there, basically from here. I found this was a project done for Paul I, Emperor of Russia, when they were decorating Pavlovsk. And he did not go with this because he thought they were too expensive. Well, I think we did better than Paul I, and we got them all for Canada, and this is the prototype, basically. And I think it has that strange combination of elements that make something classical into Nordic or Russian or something other, like the floor. The floor, it is a Russian design for a floor made by Italian craftsmen, and the same thing with those two consoles, corner consoles, encoignure, that they have these cloisonné Chinese vases on top, and these are Russian too. I mean, it is, again, you see something a little bit Byzantine on this, at least this bone and gold inlay. So this table, of course, extends, and we can have here up to 14 people. And on the other, the Chinese that we just saw, we can do the same thing. We can have up to 14. So maximum, it is 28 people for one dinner in 2 different rooms. And again, it is something that we use very, very often. And the other thing I forgot to mention is that you have seen, I would say, almost 3/4 of the house now. And we use every inch of this house. My wife and I, we might be alone. We might come from the country with, very casual and all that. And we use the house. We are seated here for lunch. We have breakfast, you'll see in the library. We have, eventually, the 2 of us in the Chinese hall. I'm saying just for dinner, but for being and sitting, we use everything. This house, even though it can represent us, and we can use it for events, for things, for social gatherings, or but it's also for our house, and we're part of that. So it's not that there's no division like for the pour la galerie, as you say in French, or for yourself. I mean, we are part of all that. So it's and that's why we appreciate so much every detail, everything, etc. This is a very good pair of paintings by Oudry, and it was very lucky to find the pair because, they go perfectly in this room. From here, as in old architecture projects, especially from the 16th, 17th, even 18th century, you had invisible doors going from one function to something more private. Today you would have a hallway, you have something to defer. You don't go from a dining room, open a door, and you have a bedroom. Well, yes, we have it here. And I'll show you that right away. If you follow me, we're coming into the one and only guest bedroom of this house. This is a rather small room, but has almost the quality of a cube. We have done it with a silk damask on the walls. And if you notice, a nice detail is the casings, the crown, and the window sill. They all upholstered in silk velvet. The same thing with this bed. It's the same model I used in the, for some who have seen the program So Chateau for Puy-sur-Vanne, I have the same bed in red, but with the roof. We have even more higher ceilings there, so I was able to do the roof belonging to this model of bed. This is all upholstered in silk velvet also. And other than that, just a pair of chairs and an Italian commode. But it is a nice guest bedroom, I suppose. You can experience now the sun. So every single room in this house, no matter where you are at one point in the day, you have the sun going all the way up to the back wall. Just a quick look at the bathroom of the guest bedroom. The one thing that you can see that it was quite nice, the result of this, is these moldings, and without any problem with respect of what it is, they are the moldings, brass moldings and the rosettes of the Galerie des Glaces of Versailles. That they were repaired a couple of times already, and I found in a place that they were working with doors that they came from the Hotel Meurice. When they did also a reconstruction of the salons there, they removed these, and I bought them in order to modify them. They were huge, in order to do all this structure here for this bathroom. So there's only the one thing to talk about, evidently, are the mirrors. And I think that the effect is pretty all right. From here that we have seen this wing, we're going to go all the way across to see the last public room, that is the library. That it is, if you follow me, we're going to go right there. This part has been sort of divided by the staircase that we created. So we have that side with the enfilade, and then this that has a different level. We have our library. In this room, as you can see, we have all that paneled wall, and with an insert of these engravings, same as that wall, same as the other wall. And it's not a coincidence. I had to do the paneling, adapt the paneling to engravings, because I wanted to have that feeling of perfection with the engravings and the rest of whatever is left of the wall. So we have one wall with the library, with my library. There's a television without doors. I mean, we use this room as it is, and I don't mind to have the screen of the TV there. And again, every piece of this room has these engravings. These engravings, if you recognize them, are Raphael's engravings of the frescoes that he did for the Loggia in the Vatican. And in the 1750s, they redesigned all what it is, the frescoes of the Loggia, and they did these engravings. And on top of that, they were colored to perfection. And this fellow who did this work is a man called Volpetto, and he's already signed for the 1750. And the collection, it is quite extraordinary. I put as much as I could here, but of course there are many more. Pieces of good furniture, we have tables and that bergère, that the rest of the furniture is at the Louvre, that is from Madame Récamier. The most interesting could be this desk that we have here, is Russian also, and it belonged to Hubert de Givenchy. I bought it at their auction when after he passed away. And other than that, it is, a mixture. It is, I don't want to repeat myself, but it is the feeling of my interiors and my house and the way we live. It is, we put together the things we love, and with a certain hand, perhaps, that makes it work. Because it doesn't, no one can come here and say, how can you have a Empire bergère and you have here two settees by Jacob, it works. It is refined. I think that we give them life with those fabrics and the way that they're set in this place. We're here in our master bedroom, which is quite secluded and very, very private, very intimate. As you can see, we have the bed canopy, and that is just a embroidered cotton. Is nothing special about the fabric rather than being embroidered. The same thing with the curtains. And I have quite some pieces of interest would be those two pedestals, that they are from a time that I am not very fan of it. Is the époque révolutionnaire, meaning from the revolution, and has some kind of military effects or something like that. This is a Viennese table. We have all the photographs with, let's say, important people. I keep them private. I mean, it's no. I don't like to just put photograph of all over the house. I mean, these are the things that people that we like, and we like to see them here. As you see, this bedroom is quite crowded. I have a Qianlong screen on my back that has a lot of people that, it is definitely no place to feel lonely here with all this company. And a photograph of us when we got married, my wife, and the combination of all our things as all the rest of the house. From this window, you can see clearly the facade where we were before, that it is the dining room and the guest bedroom in front. And on the lower part, where I said at the very beginning, those are the stables, that wing is my two-floor office, where we have the decoration department on one floor, and on the upper floor, the architecture. So it is in my own building. So it is easy for me to work. I mean, it's very comfortable. I have to end the visit because unfortunately the house ends here also. If not, I can continue. But I just wanted to open up our house in order to share with you our likes, our love for things, and the way of a restoration project. That is, it has so many rewards, you have no idea. You forget about that people were late. You forget about the prices went up. You forget about all that. All you remember now that you started with a goal. The goal is finished, and we're very happy with it. And that's the way also I end up, my jobs. That are not mine, other projects. But it's, as I say, it is a step that you have to give, doing this kind of work, and it's amazingly rewarding and brings you so much happiness.